My name is Eleanor Hayes. I am 78 years old, a retired businesswoman who most people think lives a quiet life gardening and sipping tea on the porch. What they don't know is that I built one of the most successful sneaker companies in the country. Hayes Kicks. I was the brain behind the streetwear empire that teenagers camp out overnight to buy from. But I kept that secret locked away, even from my own family, especially my grandson Liam. He is 19, obsessed with sneakers, and spends every dollar he earns collecting them. He worships the brand Hayes Originals, never knowing the woman who started it all lives under his nose. The most shocking moment came during his birthday party. He stood surrounded by his friends, showing off his latest sneakers, boasting that they were from a brand owned by some genius entrepreneur, not some old lady. When I walked past to place his gift on the table, he sniffed the air and said loudly, Grandma, you smell old. Why are you even here?" His friends roared with laughter. My heart shattered. I froze, clutching the wrapped box in trembling hands as tears burned in my eyes. None of them knew what was about to happen next. The room went dead silent when I reached into my purse, pulled out a small silver key, and placed it on the table in front of him. "That," I said with a calm voice that cut through the air, "unlocks the warehouse of the company you worship. The company you've been bragging about all night." Liam's face drained of color. His friends' mouths hung open. "What do you mean?" he stammered. I gave him a faint, icy smile. "It means," I said slowly, "you've been mocking the very woman who built your dream." Before anyone could react, I turned and walked out, leaving the party in stunned silence. That night, as I sat in my car gripping the steering wheel, I knew something had to change. They had no idea what was coming next, because I decided at that very moment to teach my grandson the biggest lesson of his life. But how did it get this bad? How did the sweet boy I raised turn into someone who could humiliate me so easily? Let me take you back to where it all began. That moment was only the beginning of a storm they were not ready to face. The road to this point was filled with pain, betrayal, and secrets I had buried for decades. You're not ready for what comes next. If this story has already hooked you, stay tuned for the next chapter. You won't believe the first thing I did after leaving that party. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the twists that are coming. When I drove away from that birthday party, my hands were trembling so badly I had to pull over on the side of the road. I stared at my own reflection in the rearview mirror, and for a long moment, I didn't even recognize the woman staring back. My heart was torn between sadness and anger. Liam, my sweet grandson whom I had rocked to sleep and taught to tie his first shoelaces, had just humiliated me in front of a room full of strangers. And worse, he did it with a prideful smirk. The pain cut deeper than any knife could. I sat there for almost an hour just thinking. Memories of Liam as a little boy flashed in my mind. Him running to me with scraped knees, him calling me his best friend. Him hugging me so tight every time I bought him a new pair of sneakers for his birthdays. Sneakers he never knew I designed myself. I swallowed hard. Somewhere along the way, the boy I knew had been replaced by someone else. Someone blinded by ego and ignorance. But I wasn't going to let that be the end of our story. The next morning, I woke up with a resolve I hadn't felt in years. For decades, I had stayed in the background, enjoying my quiet retirement while my company continued to thrive under the management of a trusted CEO. I had chosen to remain anonymous, allowing the world to believe Hayes Kicks belonged to a young male visionary, while I pulled the strings quietly. It was my choice, my peace. But now, that same decision had allowed my own family to forget who I really was. As I brewed my morning coffee, I replayed Liam's words in my head. "You smell old." Such a simple, cruel sentence. And yet, it carried the weight of every ageist stereotype I had fought against my whole life. I had built an empire in a male-dominated industry, worked through blood, sweat, and tears, and here I was, reduced to a joke because of my wrinkles. I took a deep breath, grabbed my phone, and made a call to Daniel, my attorney of 30 years. "Eleanor, it's been a while," he said warmly. "Daniel," I replied, my voice calm but firm, "I need to make some changes to my estate plan. And I need to do it quietly. He hesitated. Changes. What kind? The kind that will shake some sense into a very ungrateful young man, I said. Over the next few days I worked in silence, meeting with lawyers and financial advisors. I decided to restructure my will and put specific conditions on my fortune. Liam would not inherit a single cent until he proved himself worthy, not with words but with actions. I also arranged to take a more visible role in Hayes Kicks again, not because I needed the attention, but because it was time my family remembered who I was. Meanwhile, Liam had no idea what was brewing. He continued posting videos online about sneakers, bragging about how much he knew about the brand. He was gaining followers fast, his arrogance growing with each day. His ignorance about the real owner of the company made it almost unbearable to watch. One afternoon, I decided to pay him a surprise visit at the local sneaker store where he worked part-time. I walked in wearing a simple cardigan, jeans, and an old pair of sneakers. Liam was behind the counter, chatting with a customer. When he saw me, his face fell. "Grandma, what are you doing here?" he asked, clearly annoyed. "I just came to see you," I said softly. "Well, I'm working, so maybe you shouldn't hang around here," he replied without even looking at me. The customer gave me a sympathetic glance. I nodded slowly and walked out, my chest tightening with each step. That was the final push I needed. Liam's disrespect had reached a level I could no longer ignore. That night I called a meeting with the CEO of Hayes Kicks. I told him I wanted to host a private event at the company's headquarters, one that would include Liam and his friends. The CEO raised an eyebrow, clearly intrigued. "What do you have in mind, Eleanor?" he asked. "A lesson," I said with a sly smile. "One that will change my grandson forever." The day of the event came. Liam was told he had won a special fan experience with Hayes Originals, and he was over the moon. He bragged about it on social media for days. When he arrived at the sleek glass-covered building, he and his friends were ushered into a massive showroom lined with rare sneakers. Cameras flashed, music played, and they were treated like VIPs. Liam was in heaven. Then the lights dimmed. A single spotlight appeared on the stage. And there I was, walking slowly to the center with a microphone in my hand. Liam's jaw dropped. His friends whispered in shock. "Good evening," I said, my voice echoing through the room. "My name is Eleanor Hayes, and I am the founder and owner of Hayes Kicks." Gasps filled the air. Liam stood frozen, his face pale. I looked directly at him and continued. "The sneakers you worship, the brand you've dedicated your life to? They came from me. The same woman you called old and laughed at in front of your friends. Tonight, Liam, you will learn exactly who you've been disrespecting." The room was dead silent. Liam's friends stepped back, leaving him standing alone in the spotlight. I took a deep breath and said, "You thought you knew everything about Hayes Kicks. But tonight I'll show you the truth. The truth about me, about the empire you love, and about what it takes to be truly worthy of it." Liam's lips trembled, his eyes wide with fear and shame. He opened his mouth to speak, but I raised a hand to stop him. "This is just the beginning," I said. "You have no idea what's coming next." And with that I walked off the stage, leaving the room buzzing with shock and whispers. Liam stood there, completely shattered. What happened after that event? Oh, it only got more intense. Because the lesson I was about to teach him would push him to his limits, and beyond. Stay tuned for the next chapter. What I did next will leave you speechless. You won't believe how far this story goes. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss the next shocking twist. The silence that followed that night was deafening. Liam barely spoke to me afterward. His pride was bruised. His ego crushed in front of everyone he wanted to impress. I expected anger, maybe even hatred, but instead I got avoidance. He didn't call, didn't text, and didn't even come by my house like he used to. But that didn't stop me. I wasn't done. You see, this wasn't just about embarrassing him. It was about opening his eyes. The boy who once hugged me after every scraped knee had turned into someone who judged people by how cool or young they seemed. I had to dig deeper, not just to teach him, but to save him from a life where superficial things ruled his heart. Days turned into a week, and I could tell he was stewing in his shame. Then one evening there was a knock on my door. When I opened it, there he stood, wearing his favorite hoodie and a pair of the latest Hays kicks. He didn't meet my eyes. "Grandma," he mumbled, "can we talk?" I stepped aside and let him in. He sat at my kitchen table, staring at his shoes as if they could give him the words he needed. Finally he spoke. "Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you ever say you owned the company?" I poured him some tea and answered calmly, "Because I didn't need to. I didn't build it to show off, Liam. I built it to create something meaningful, something lasting. I wanted you to love me for me, not for what I owned." His shoulders slumped. I didn't mean what I said at the party. I was just trying to be cool," I finished for him. He looked up at me, guilt flooding his eyes. "Yeah," he admitted softly. He sighed. "Liam, respect isn't about age, status, or appearances. It's about seeing the value in someone, no matter what." I leaned forward. "You've forgotten that." He didn't answer, but I could see something shifting in him, a crack in the wall he'd built up. Yet, I also knew one conversation wasn't enough. He needed an experience that would truly humble him, to make him understand what it meant to build something with your own two hands. That's when an idea formed. The next day I called the CEO of Hays Kicks again. "I need Liam to work in the company," I told him. "Not in an office, not in some cozy role, on the factory floor. No one is to treat him differently because of me. He'll start from the bottom." The CEO hesitated but agreed. When I told Liam he was going to work at the company, he frowned. "What? You're making me a janitor or something?" "Not a janitor," I said with a small smile. "You'll be on the production line. The place where real magic happens." He groaned. "Do I even have a choice?" "No," I replied firmly. "Consider it part of your education." The following Monday, Liam started his first day. He was shocked at how tough it was. Gluing soles, stitching fabrics, standing on his feet for hours. He came home every night exhausted, his hands sore. Slowly, he started to appreciate the effort behind every sneaker he owned. He even began to bond with the workers, listening to their stories, learning from their experiences. One evening, he came to my house covered in sweat and grime. He collapsed onto my couch and said, "Grandma, those people, they work so hard. They take pride in what they do. I never thought about what goes into making these shoes." I smiled softly. "Now you know." Over the next few weeks I saw Liam change. He stopped bragging online, stopped treating sneakers like trophies and started respecting the process, and the people behind them. But my plan wasn't finished. The final part of his lesson was still to come, and it would test him like never before. You see, I arranged for him to work on a special project, a limited edition sneaker inspired by our family's story. The catch: he would have to design it from scratch, pitch it, and earn the approval of the entire design team. If he failed, his name wouldn't be anywhere near it. When I told him about it, his eyes widened. "You want me to design a shoe? I don't know if I can." "You can," I said, placing a hand on his shoulder. "But only if you put your heart into it." The pressure was on. He spent sleepless nights sketching, researching, and even asking me about the early days of Hays Kicks. For the first time, we connected on a level we hadn't in years. He wanted to know everything: how I started, the struggles I faced, the risks I took. I told him stories I had kept locked away, and with each one, I saw him looking at me with new eyes. Finally, the day of his pitch arrived. He stood nervously in front of the design team, clutching his sketches. I watched from the back of the room as he spoke passionately about his concept, a sneaker called Legacy. He explained how it honored the generations before him, how it symbolized respect, and how it carried the spirit of those who built something from nothing. When he finished, there was silence. Then the room erupted into applause. The head designer smiled and said, "Welcome to the team, Liam." Tears welled in my eyes. For the first time in a long time I felt proud, not just of my company but of my grandson. But the real test wasn't over. Because just when I thought Liam had learned his lesson, something happened that threatened to undo everything. You won't believe what challenge came next. Stay tuned for the next chapter. The twist will shock you. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what's about to happen. The day after Liam's pitch was approved, I thought the storm was finally over. I believed he had learned his lesson. He was softer with me, respectful with the workers, and more grateful for the things in his life. But life has a way of testing us when we least expect it. 2 weeks later, the sneaker Legacy was set to go into production. The buzz around it was huge. Sneakerheads everywhere were talking about this mysterious new design rumored to have been created by an unknown talent within Hayes Kicks. Liam was on cloud 9. He was finally earning his place in the world, not through arrogance but through hard work. Then came the betrayal. One afternoon while checking emails, I received an anonymous tip. Someone had leaked the design to a rival sneaker company. They were planning to release a similar shoe just days before our official launch. My heart sank. Only a few people had access to those designs, and one of them was Liam. I didn't want to believe it. I refused to believe my own grandson could do something so underhanded. But as I dug deeper, the evidence became undeniable. The leak had come from his company login. My chest tightened as I called him to my house. When he arrived, I was sitting at the kitchen table with the printed evidence. "Liam," I said quietly, "sit down." He looked confused. "What's going on, Grandma?" I slid the papers toward him. "These were traced back to your account. Do you have anything to say?" His face turned white. "No. I didn't do this. I swear I didn't." "Then how did it happen?" asked sharply. "I don't know," he shouted, panic rising in his voice. I searched his eyes for any sign of a lie, but all I saw was fear. He was telling the truth. Someone had framed him. I took a deep breath. "Liam, this isn't just about a shoe. This is about your name, your character. You need to clear this up, or everything you've worked for will crumble." Determined to prove himself, Liam dove headfirst into finding the culprit. He worked tirelessly, going through access logs, talking to co-workers, and digging into security footage. His passion and drive amazed me. For once, he wasn't just fighting for sneakers, he was fighting for his integrity. After 3 days of relentless effort, he called me, his voice trembling. "Grandma, I found something. You need to see this." When I arrived at the office, he showed me the footage. There it was. One of the senior designers, a man named Carl, had used Liam's login credentials after watching him type his password. Carl had been jealous of the attention Liam was getting and decided to sabotage him. The proof was undeniable. We confronted Carl and he confessed, his career ending in shame. The company cleared Liam's name, but the experience changed him forever. He finally understood how fragile success could be and how easily trust could be broken. But just when we thought we could breathe, another storm hit. The rival company, desperate to still beat us, launched an aggressive campaign to smear Hayes Kicks. Rumors spread online, sales began to drop, and investors were panicking. For the first time in years, the company I built was under threat. Called Liam into my office. "We're in trouble," I told him bluntly. "What can I do?" he asked, his voice steady. "You're going to lead the public response," I said. His eyes widened. "Me?" "Yes, you," I replied. "This is your chance to show the world who you are, and who we are." The next day, Liam stood on a stage at a press conference, cameras flashing in his face. He spoke with honesty and passion, defending Hayes Kicks and explaining the truth about the sabotage. His words went viral. People admired his courage, and slowly, the company's reputation began to recover. Watching him up there, my heart swelled with pride. This was the boy I raised. This was the man he was becoming. But as the cheers died down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something bigger was coming. Something that would test us in ways we hadn't imagined. Because on the very night we celebrated saving the company, I received a phone call that froze my blood. It was from my doctor. What he told me changed everything. You won't believe the turn this story is about to take. Stay with me for the next chapter. It will break your heart and make you hold your breath. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next. I sat in my car outside the office, clutching my phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. The words from my doctor echoed in my ears like a cruel whisper. Eleanor, we found something concerning in your latest scans. You need to come in right away. For a moment, the world felt like it was spinning out of control. I had just survived a storm with the company, rebuilt my relationship with Liam, and now this. My own body was betraying me. I took a deep breath and drove home in silence, my mind filled with fears I hadn't faced in years. When I got inside, Liam was there, excitedly showing me sketches for the next sneaker collection. His face was glowing with pride. But I couldn't match his smile. "Grandma, what's wrong?" he asked, noticing the worry in my eyes. I forced a small smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just a bit tired." I didn't tell him, not yet. I needed time to process it myself. The next morning I went to the hospital alone. After more tests, the doctor confirmed my worst fear. Early-stage cancer. It was treatable, but only if I started treatment immediately. As I drove back, my heart ached. I thought of Liam. I thought of the company. I thought of the legacy I had built. I wasn't ready to leave any of it behind. That night, I sat Liam down at the kitchen table. My hands trembled as I spoke. "Liam, there's something you need to know." His eyes widened as I told him about the diagnosis. For a moment he just stared at me, his mouth open, his face pale. "No," he said finally, his voice cracking. "No, Grandma, you're strong. You're going to beat this." I reached across the table and took his hand. "I'll fight, Liam. But I need you to be strong too. For me. For the company." Tears rolled down his cheeks, and he squeezed my hand tightly. "I'll do whatever it takes. I promise." Over the next weeks I began my treatment. It was exhausting. Chemotherapy drained me, left me weak, and some days I barely had the strength to get out of bed. But every day Liam was there. He cooked for me, drove me to appointments, and even sat with me through the treatments, holding my hand. During those quiet moments, our bond grew stronger than ever. He started telling me things he had never said before. How much he admired me, how sorry he was for ever disrespecting me, how he wanted to make me proud. One evening, as I rested on the couch, Liam said something that made my heart swell. "Grandma, when you get better, I want to take Hayes Kicks to new heights, with you by my side. I want the world to know your name, not just the brand." Tears filled my eyes. "Oh, Liam," I whispered, "that's all I've ever wanted, for you to see me, really see me." But life wasn't done testing us. As the company began to recover from the previous scandals, the rival brand launched a lawsuit against Hayes Kicks, claiming we had stolen their designs. It was a desperate move, but one that could cost us millions. The stress was overwhelming. My health was fragile, and the company's future was hanging by a thread. "Let me handle this, Grandma," Liam said one night. His voice filled with determination. "You focus on getting better. I'll protect what you built." For the first time I stepped back and let him take the lead. He gathered evidence, rallied the legal team, and even traveled to confront the rival company's executives. His courage amazed me. The boy who once mocked me was now fighting like a lion to defend my name. After weeks of intense legal battles, the court ruled in our favor. Hayes Kicks was cleared, and the rival company was forced to issue a public apology. It was a victory that belonged as much to Liam as it did to me. The night we celebrated, sitting on the porch with cups of tea, I looked at my grandson and said, "You've grown into a man I'm proud of." He smiled through tears. "I learned from the best." Just when everything seemed to settle, my doctor called again with unexpected news. My treatment had worked better than they hoped. I was in remission. Relief washed over me like a warm wave. But the story wasn't over yet. Because as I started to regain my strength, an opportunity arose that could change Hayes Kicks forever. an offer from a global investor to buy the company for billions. Liam was ecstatic, but I hesitated. Selling meant giving up control, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for that. Worse, there was a clause that could erase my legacy completely. I had to make a choice. Do I sell the empire I built with my blood and tears, or do I fight to keep it under our family's name? The decision I made next would shock everyone, including Liam. The final chapters are coming, and you won't believe the twists ahead. Stay tuned for the next chapter. What I decided to do with Hayes Kicks will leave you breathless. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. The investor's offer sat on my dining table like a ticking time bomb. The papers were thick, filled with terms and clauses that glittered with promises but hid sharp blades underneath. Billions of dollars. They were offering more money than I could ever spend in 10 lifetimes. But it wasn't about the money. It was about my name, my legacy, my life's work. Liam was practically glowing when he looked at the offer. "Grandma, this is it. This is the deal that could make us unstoppable. Think about what we could do with that money." I studied his face carefully. "And what about Hayes Kicks? What happens to it when we sell?" He hesitated. "Well, they'd rebrand it. They'd take over." "Exactly," I said, my voice like ice. That night I sat in my rocking chair, staring out at the moonlit sky, thinking about all the years I spent building Hayes Kicks. I remembered working in a tiny basement, stitching leather by hand, dreaming of something bigger. I remembered the long nights, the failures, the tears. I remembered the moment I finally sold my first pair. And I remembered every single person who believed in me when no one else did. How could I sell that? How could I erase that history? But then another thought crept in. Was I being selfish? Was I clinging to the past at the cost of Liam's future? The company needed to evolve, and maybe this was the chance to give it wings. The next morning I called the investor's representative, a sharp woman named Vanessa. She was relentless, confident, and made the deal sound sweeter with every word. "Mrs. Hayes, this acquisition would ensure the brand lives on globally. You'd be remembered as the visionary who birthed it, and your grandson would lead the next phase." Her words were tempting, but something in my gut twisted. "I'll think about it," I told her. Meanwhile, Liam threw himself into preparing pitches, presentations, and scenarios for the acquisition. He was excited, but I could see he was torn too. Every time he passed by my old design sketches hanging on the wall, his smile faltered. One evening we sat together on the porch. "Grandma," he said softly, "I know what this company means to you. I'd never force you to sell if it doesn't feel right." I looked at him, my heart aching with pride. "Liam, this isn't just about me. It's about us. About what kind of legacy we want to leave." That night, I dreamed of my younger self, working in the basement, holding my first prototype. She looked at me and said, "Don't let them take your soul." I woke up in a cold sweat, my decision clear as day. The next morning I called Vanessa. "I have my answer," I said. She sounded eager. "And? No deal." The silence on the other end was sharp. "Mrs. Hayes, you're walking away from billions." "I'm keeping something more valuable," I replied and hung up. Liam was shocked when I told him. "You said no." "Yes," I said firmly. "Hayes Kicks stays with us. We'll make it bigger on our own terms." He stared at me, then slowly broke into a smile. "You're incredible, Grandma." But our fight was not over. The investor wasn't pleased. Within days, they launched a smear campaign, spreading lies about Hayes Kicks online and pushing influencers to badmouth our products. Sales plummeted again. "This is war," Liam said, clenching his fists. "Yes," I said, my eyes narrowing. "And they have no idea who they're dealing with." We fought back. We launched a campaign celebrating the true roots of Hayes Kicks, telling our story. The struggles, the sacrifices, the heart behind every shoe. People connected with it. Customers rallied to our side, flooding social media with support. Sales surged back stronger than ever. But the investors didn't stop. They sent spies into our company, tried to hack our systems, and even bribed employees to turn against us. The betrayal cut deep, but Liam and I stood firm. One night, after another long day of fighting back, Liam asked, "Grandma, what if they don't stop? What if they destroy us?" I looked at him with fire in my eyes. "Then we fight until our last breath. Because some things are worth protecting no matter the cost." Then, just as the storm seemed to be calming, something unexpected happened. A mysterious buyer stepped forward. Someone who offered to buy a 10% stake in Hayes Kicks, not to control it, but to protect it. The identity of the buyer was hidden, and the conditions were strange. "Do we take it?" Liam asked. I hesitated. "We need to know who's behind this first." The next day, we arranged a meeting with the mysterious investor. When the doors opened, Liam's eyes widened. Mine filled with shock. The person who walked in was the last person I ever expected to see. Who was this mysterious figure, and what did they want with Hayes Kicks? You won't believe the twist coming in the next chapter. Stay tuned because the story is about to explode. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss it. When the door swung open, the air in the room seemed to thicken. Liam's jaw dropped, and I felt my heart stop for a moment. Standing there with the confidence of someone who knew they held all the cards, was David Monroe. My former business partner, the man I once trusted like a brother, the man who had betrayed me decades ago. "Eleanor," he said smoothly. His voice laced with a mixture of familiarity and arrogance. "David," I replied coldly, my body tensing. Liam looked between us, confused. "Grandma, who is this guy?" I didn't take my eyes off David. The man who almost destroyed Hayes Kicks before it even had a chance to shine. Years ago, when Hayes Kicks was just a budding brand, David and I worked side by side. He was charming, brilliant with numbers, and everyone thought we were an unstoppable team. But greed consumed him. He sold out to a competitor behind my back, nearly costing me everything. I had to buy him out to save the company. I swore I would never let him near my work again. And yet, here he was decades later offering to help. "I'm not here to fight, Eleanor," David said, raising his hands in mock surrender. "I'm here to fix what I broke. Let me invest just 10%. I don't want control. I just want to make amends." I studied his face, searching for the truth behind his words. He was older, grayer, but his eyes still had that same calculating glint. "Why now?" asked my voice sharp. "Because," he said, glancing at Liam, "I see what you've built. I see what he's becoming. And I want to be a part of it." Liam turned to me. "Grandma, maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe this could help us." I shook my head slightly. Or maybe it's the same trap as before. The room was tense, thick with unspoken memories and suspicions. Finally I said, "We'll think about it." David smiled, knowing he had planted a seed of doubt, and left as suddenly as he came. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind raced through the past, replaying every moment of betrayal. But as I watched Liam sleeping on the couch, he had fallen asleep while working on designs, I realized something. This wasn't just my fight anymore. It was his too. I had to teach him how to make these tough calls, even when they tore you apart inside. The next day, we gathered our legal team and began digging into David's financials. What we found shocked me. He was nearly bankrupt. His investment wasn't about making amends. It was about saving himself. Worse, he had secret ties to the same investor who had tried to buy us out earlier. I felt my blood boil. "I knew it," I growled. "The snake hasn't changed." We set a trap. Liam sent David an email, pretending to accept the deal but asking for certain documents to finalize the stake purchase. What came back confirmed our suspicions. Hidden clauses, secret agreements with a rival company, and evidence that he planned to slowly take control of Hayes Kicks through backdoor deals. When we confronted David with the evidence, his mask slipped. "You think you're clever, Eleanor," he hissed. "You can't hold on to this company forever. You're old. Sooner or later, someone stronger will take it from you." I stood tall, my voice like steel. Maybe I am old, but I'm not weak. And neither is my grandson. Liam stepped forward, his voice steady. Get out. Hayes Kicks doesn't need you. David's face twisted with rage, but he had no choice. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. I looked at Liam, pride swelling in my chest. He had stood his ground like a true leader. For a while, things seemed to settle. Our sales skyrocketed again, thanks to the successful launch of the Legacy sneaker. The world loved it, and Liam became somewhat of a celebrity in the sneaker community. But with fame came danger. One night, as Liam left the company headquarters, a black SUV followed him. He noticed it too late. The vehicle blocked his car, and masked men jumped out, demanding he hand over the files. He barely escaped, running into an alley and hiding until they drove off. When he called me, his voice was shaking. "Grandma, they're trying to scare us," he said, breathless. "They won't win," I told him, though my hands trembled. "We'll fight back harder than ever." The attack was a warning, and we knew it. But instead of backing down, we doubled our security, locked our systems tighter, and prepared to take the fight to them. The rival investor and David were desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. But something unexpected happened during this chaos. Liam, who had once been arrogant and self-absorbed, became my rock. He supported me through my recovery, stood by me through the threats, and fought for the company with every ounce of his being. I realized then that my plan had worked. He had truly learned what legacy means. Still, I knew the final battle was coming. David wouldn't give up so easily, and neither would the investor behind him. They were planning something bigger, something that could destroy us for good. And they chose the worst possible time to strike, during the global launch event for Legacy. What they did that night turned our celebration into chaos. Stay tuned for the next chapter. You won't believe how it all unfolded. Like, comment, and subscribe because the next twist will take your breath away. The night of the global Legacy launch was supposed to be the most triumphant moment of my life. The venue was breathtaking. Massive screens flashing images of our sneakers, a crowd of thousands cheering, influencers and media buzzing with anticipation. Liam stood on stage beside me, looking more confident than I had ever seen him. He had come so far. I felt tears prick my eyes as I realized this was not just the launch of a shoe. It was the launch of a new era for Hayes Kicks. As the countdown to the reveal ticked down, the energy in the room surged. Cameras flashed. Music thumped. The crowd chanted, "Legacy! Legacy!" Liam turned to me with a proud smile. "We did it, Grandma." I squeezed his hand. Yes, we did. But just as the final number hit 0, the massive screens behind us flickered. The sleek promotional video that was supposed to play suddenly cut to black. Then, without warning, a series of distorted images and videos began to play. Fake footage spliced together to make it look like Hayes Kicks used sweatshops, exploited workers, and faked quality reports. Gasps erupted in the crowd. Murmurs turned into shouts. Liam's face went pale. I felt my heart slam against my chest. This was sabotage, David's final play. The video ended with a chilling message. Hayes Kicks, built on lies. Chaos erupted. Reporters screamed questions, fans booed, and the launch that was supposed to be our crowning moment was crumbling before our eyes. I grabbed the microphone, my voice steady despite the storm. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is a lie," I said firmly. "Someone is trying to destroy what we've built. Please give us time to prove the truth." But the damage was done. Security escorted us off the stage as angry voices echoed behind us. Liam punched the wall backstage, tears in his eyes. "They ruined everything, Grandma. Everything we worked for." I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. "No, they haven't won. Not yet." That night we went into full crisis mode. Our PR team worked non-stop, but the smear campaign spread like wildfire. Hashtags calling to boycott Hayes Kicks trended worldwide. Sales plummeted overnight. Investors started calling, some threatening to pull out. "I can't believe this," Liam muttered as he scrolled through the flood of negative press. How can they do this and get away with it? They won't, I said, my voice low and deadly. We'll find proof. We'll turn this around. We spent the next 72 hours digging through our servers, tracing where the hack had originated. The trail led back to David and the rival investor. They had paid hackers to insert fake footage and override our systems during the launch. But finding proof wasn't enough. We needed to make the world believe us. Liam came up with an idea. Grandma, what if we live stream the truth? Show people the real workers, the real process, everything raw and unfiltered. Let them see who we really are. I smiled at him through my exhaustion. That's exactly what we'll do. Within days, we arranged a live broadcast from our main factory. We showed the real working conditions, interviewed employees, and revealed the evidence of sabotage. Liam spoke passionately, calling out the lies and naming David as the culprit. The response was immediate. Fans flooded social media with support, influencers apologized for believing the rumors, and our sales began to recover. But David wasn't done. The very next day, he held his own press conference, denying everything and threatening to sue us for defamation. He smirked into the cameras, confident he still had the upper hand. Liam slammed his fist on the table. We need to shut him down for good. He nodded. Then we'll use the one thing he can't fight. His own words. You see, during our investigation, we had found recordings of David boasting to his investor partner about how he would destroy Hayes Kicks. The evidence was irrefutable. We waited for the perfect moment to drop it. That moment came during a high-profile sneaker expo where both brands were present. As David began his speech, our team hacked into the big screen behind him. Suddenly, his own voice filled the room. I'll take Hayes Kicks down from the inside. The old woman won't see it coming. Gasps erupted. Cameras turned to David as he stammered, trying to deny it, but it was too late. The crowd booed him. Security escorted him out as reporters swarmed. The investor who backed him publicly cut ties. Hayes Kicks was vindicated. That night, as Liam and I watched the world praise our comeback, he turned to me and said, "We won, Grandma. You did it." "No, Liam," I said softly. "We did it. Together." But even as we celebrated, I knew our journey wasn't over. My health was still fragile, and I had to think about the future of Hayes Kicks. More importantly, I had to think about Liam's future. He had grown into a leader, but would he be ready to carry the weight alone? And just as I began to plan my final steps, an unexpected letter arrived at my doorstep. The handwriting was unfamiliar, and when I opened it, my hands trembled. The letter contained a single sentence. "You think you've won, but the game has just begun. Who sent this letter, and what new threat are we facing? The final battles are near. Stay with me for the next chapter. The truth behind this warning will shock you. Like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss it." The letter burned in my hands as I read that single sentence over and over. You think you've won, but the game has just begun. My instincts screamed that this wasn't from David. He was finished, humiliated, and stripped of power. This was someone else. Someone even more dangerous. I showed the letter to Liam that evening. His brow furrowed, his jaw tight. "Grandma, who could this be? We've already taken down David." "That's what worries me," I said quietly. "Enemies like him don't work alone. There's always someone lurking in the shadows." Over the next few days, strange things began happening. Our delivery trucks were rerouted mysteriously, costing us thousands. Confidential designs leaked online before we even announced them. Worst of all, someone hacked into my personal email, sending threatening messages under my name to our suppliers. Panic rippled through the company. "This isn't just sabotage," Liam muttered as we looked at the chaos unfolding. "This is war." The tension was unbearable. Every day felt like walking on glass. I couldn't sleep, and Liam was running himself ragged trying to keep the company afloat. Then one night, as we sat in the office surrounded by stacks of paperwork, the phone rang. I answered, and a distorted voice on the other end said, "Sell the company, Eleanor, or watch it burn." Then the line went dead. I gripped the receiver so tightly it hurt. "They want us to give up," I told Liam. "Then they don't know us at all," he said, his eyes blazing. We launched a private investigation, hiring cybersecurity experts and private detectives. After days of digging, the truth surfaced. A powerful corporate syndicate, one that had been silently buying out sneaker brands worldwide, was behind everything. Their leader, a ruthless businessman named Victor Kane, was orchestrating the attacks to force us to sell. Victor Kane was no ordinary rival. He was known for playing dirty, destroying businesses from the inside, using blackmail, threats, and even violence. He wanted Hayes Kicks because it was the last independent brand standing in his way. When we refused to sell, the attacks escalated. One night, the factory caught fire. Luckily, no one was hurt, but the damage was immense. Firefighters found traces of accelerants. It was arson. Liam was furious, pacing the hospital waiting room where we had gone to check on the workers. "He's trying to scare us into surrendering," he spat. I took his hand. "Liam, this is our moment to prove we're stronger than fear." The next day we held a press conference. Standing in front of the charred remains of our factory, I spoke with fire in my voice. "They can burn buildings, but they can't burn a legacy," I declared. "Hayes Kicks will rise again, stronger than ever." The crowd erupted in cheers, but I could see Victor Kane watching from the distance, a cold smirk on his face. He wasn't done. Behind the scenes, we worked tirelessly to rebuild. Liam led fundraising efforts, rallying the sneaker community. Fans donated, influencers promoted, and soon enough we had enough to restart production. The bond between us and our supporters grew stronger than ever. But Victor made one final move. He filed a lawsuit claiming we stole his patented technology for our latest sneakers, a blatant lie. If he won, Hayes Kicks would be forced to shut down. The courtroom battle was fierce. Their lawyers were vicious, twisting evidence, trying to paint us as thieves. Liam testified passionately, defending the integrity of our work. I took the stand, telling the story of how I built Hayes Kicks with my own hands, how every design came from my heart. The judge listened intently, the tension in the room so thick you could cut it with a knife. Then, at the final hour, our investigators delivered a bombshell. A video of Victor himself admitting in a private meeting that his lawsuit was fabricated to crush that old woman and her company. When the judge saw it, the verdict was clear. The lawsuit was thrown out, and Victor Kane was fined heavily for fraud. We walked out of that courtroom victorious, but I knew the battle had taken a toll. My health was fragile, and though my cancer was in remission, the stress weighed heavily on me. That night, as Liam and I sat on the porch watching the stars, he turned to me and said, "Grandma, you've fought enough. Let me carry this from here." I smiled, tears welling in my eyes. "You're ready, Liam. You've become the man I always knew you could be." But before I could tell him my final plans for Hayes Kicks, my phone buzzed. It was a message, no name, just words that chilled me to my core. "Tomorrow, everything ends." I looked at Liam, my hands trembling. "Something's coming, Liam. And we have to be ready. What happens on that fateful tomorrow will change everything. The final chapter is next, and it will shake you to your soul. Don't miss the next chapter. The ending will leave you breathless. Like, comment, and subscribe because the conclusion is one you'll never forget." The morning after that ominous message, the sky was gray, as if it sensed the storm that was about to come. Liam and I woke up before sunrise, both restless. We didn't know what tomorrow meant in the threat, but we knew it wasn't an empty warning. By mid-morning, strange reports started coming in. Our servers were under a massive cyber attack. Thousands of hacking attempts flooding our systems. Emails were wiped, orders were scrambled, and live tracking for shipments vanished. Hayes Kicks was on the brink of shutting down digitally. "Grandma, they're trying to erase us completely," Liam shouted as he frantically typed on his laptop, working with our IT team. I stood behind him, my voice steady despite my pounding heart. Then we fight back. No matter what. We pulled every resource we had. Firewalls were reinforced, backups were launched, and our cybersecurity team battled the attackers for hours. Just when we thought we were gaining ground, the power to the entire building cut out. Darkness swallowed the headquarters. Liam grabbed a flashlight and turned to me. "They're here." Before I could answer, the backup generators kicked in, but at half power. The screens flickered back to life, showing one message across every monitor. "Sell now or lose everything." I took a deep breath, my eyes narrowing. Victor Kane. We had to make a choice. Give in to his demands or fight with everything we had left. I looked at Liam, and without saying a word, we both knew the answer. We went live on social media immediately, broadcasting from our phones since our systems were compromised. I spoke straight to our supporters. "They're trying to destroy us because they fear us," I said, my voice strong. "But this company belongs to the people who believe in it, not to the cowards who hide behind threats." The live stream exploded, millions tuning in to watch. Fans flooded our headquarters, bringing backup power sources, volunteering to help secure the building, and defending our legacy online. The hacker attacks slowed as the syndicate realized their cover was blown. Just when we thought we had survived, the front doors of our headquarters burst open. Victor Kane himself walked in with a handful of men in suits, smirking like a predator. "Still holding on, Eleanor," he said mockingly. I stepped forward, my cane tapping against the floor. "You came here to watch us fall. But you'll witness something else. You'll see us rise." Liam pulled out his phone, revealing it was recording live for millions to see. Victor's smile faltered. "This ends now," I said. "You've threatened, lied, and burned, but you underestimated one thing. You can't kill a legacy built on truth." Victor lunged to grab the phone, but security swarmed, pushing him back. The live stream captured everything. His aggression, his threats, his final words. "You think you've won. You're an old woman clinging to a dying dream." The crowd outside booed, reporters shouted questions, and police who had been alerted earlier stormed the building, arresting Victor for corporate sabotage, arson, and fraud. The syndicate crumbled overnight. When the dust settled, Hayes Kicks stood stronger than ever. Our story went viral, not because of the shoes but because of the fight behind them. Sales skyrocketed. Fans called me a legend, a fighter who refused to bow. That evening, sitting on the porch with Liam, we watched the sunset together. "You saved the company, Grandma," he said, his voice filled with admiration. "No, Liam," I said softly. "We saved it. And now it's yours to protect." I handed him the original key to the warehouse, the same one I'd placed on the table at his birthday months ago. "This key doesn't just open doors, Liam," I said. "It carries my legacy. And now it's yours." He took it with tears in his eyes. "I'll make you proud, Grandma." "You already have," I whispered. The next morning I called a company-wide meeting. Standing on stage, I announced my retirement as the CEO of Hayes Kicks. The room erupted in applause, tears, and cheers as I named Liam the new head of the company. He stood by my side, strong and confident, ready to lead. As I stepped down, I felt peace wash over me. I had fought my last battle and I had won, not just for me but for him, for us, for everyone who ever believed in what we built. The legacy of Hayes Kicks would live on, not because of me alone, but because of the values we carried: resilience, respect, and love. And as I walked out of that building for the last time as its leader, I looked up at the giant billboard of the new Legacy sneakers with Liam's name on it and smiled. The world finally knew the truth. The old woman they once mocked was the queen who built an empire. And her grandson, who once said she smelled old, had become the man worthy of carrying her crown. If this story moved you, remember this. Never underestimate the power of quiet strength and unwavering love. Share this story, like, and subscribe, because legacies are built when we refuse to give up.